Shabbat Shalom. Happy Sabbath. The Gihon generation born blind. The Gihon generation born blind. That's the subject of our study today. And I speak of the Gihon River that we see there in Genesis chapter 2. And indeed a generation that is born blind, in that the comprehension of it is not only lost, but is not studied at all. So come with me to the book of Marcos, that's the book of Mark, and we're going to dilate upon the 10th chapter, beginning at the verse 46. Mark chapter 10, verse 46, reading on. And they came to Jericho, that's Jericho, and as he was leaving Jericho with his taught ones, and a large crowd, blind Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus, was sitting by the way begging. And when he heard that it was Yeshua of Nazareth, he began to cry out and to say, Yeshua, son of David, have compassion on me. And many were reprimanding him to be silent. But he cried out all the more, Son of David, have compassion on me. And Yeshua stopped and said, call him. And they called the blind man, saying to him, take courage, arise, he is calling you. The word here tells us that Bartimaeus, though he was blind, when he heard that Yeshua was passing by, he saw who it was. He didn't see him with his naked eyes, but his pineal gland saw him. And so Bartimaeus was insightfully blind. He was blind physically, but he had insight beyond it, that which some of those who could see could not see, and had in fact denied the Messiah. So we're dealing here with this insightful blindness, meaning he was seeing with his pineal gland. He's sharp, shrewd. And so you have that kind of blindness. And so this morning we want to look at another kind of blindness. Turn with me to Yohanan, that's the scripture reading that was read earlier, chapter 9, and beginning at the first verse. And passing by, he saw a man blind from birth. And his taught ones, his Talmudim, his disciples, asked him, saying, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he should be born blind? Yeshua answered, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but that the works of Elohim might be made manifest in him. So we have seen the man born blind, And we've seen the insightful blind man, legally blind. But this morning, my intent is to look at spiritual blindness. We want to juxtapose that with the man who was born blind. As I indicated earlier, Bartimaeus could not see with his eyes. But when he heard the name, Yeshua, that name that was heralded by angels, that he's coming, and he's coming to make sure that the blind would see, and those who are deaf would hear, and even those who are imprisoned in the grave, Lazarus, come forth. That name, that is above all other names. When he heard that, this blind man just got up and shouted. And despite the fact that they tried to keep him quiet, they could not. And so this morning I want you to know that spiritual blindness is much more than an impediment of sight. It's much more than that. It's when all the senses conspire, converge, come together to deny divine utterances. That's blindness. That's blindness. Blindness, the kind that I'm talking about spiritually, it is the Alcatraz of religion. It is the San Quentin of our circumstances. We read, but we do not comprehend. And we are forever reading, but we're not understanding Yah's word. Oh yes, it's the kind of denominational heresy. That's what spiritual blindness is. It is the HMP Sutton. It is the Wakefield, if you live in England. It is the Belmarsh. It is the Winston Green. It has become a prison to us. And so we are caught up in this kind of prison. And in that we see the pastors, the bishops, the priests. They have become the wardens and the governors of the prisons. And we have made the church seem like the prison. And therefore this morning I come to you, even as a probation officer would, to make a case for your parole. That's my intent this morning as a probation officer. I want to make a case for your parole. I want to do that. And so I would like you to come with me to the book of Genesis. That's Bereshit. Bereshit chapter 2. And I'm reading here from the Septuagint Kodesh Scriptures. The Septuagint. Verse 10 of chapter 2. Now a river issued out of Eden to water the garden, then it is divided into 4 heads. The name of the first is Physon. This is that which encircleth the whole country, Evelat, where there is gold. And the gold of the country is good. We looked at this last week, but I think it has more in it for us to tap into and to dig deeper into. There's also carbuncle and Parisian stone, and the name of the second river is Gihon. The subject of our discussion this morning. This is that which encircleth the whole country of Ethiopia. And the third river is the Tigris. This is that which floweth down over against the Syrians. And the fourth river is the Euphrates. But let's look at the Gihon, because the word says that the Gihon River that comes from the Eden encircleth Ethiopia. It encircleth Ethiopia. Now, remember, our subject is that the Gihon generation is born how? Blind. And perhaps all of the bodily afflictions, none lays more weight on our bodies than blindness. And as I indicated also, I wish to show that blindness is not merely an impediment of sight. No. It is the solitary confinement, the prison of our circumstances. Because as we read the book here, and it says that the river would encircle all of Ethiopia, all of it. We ask ourselves, what is the writer trying to tell us? Because if we look at Ethiopia today, they will tell us that Ethiopia is a landlocked country. It is a landlocked country. It sits between other countries. It says here, it encircles it. And as I look at this, I want to know why the cartographers, the people who draw the map, ancient maps, subsequently change the old structure of Ethiopia. It was never a landlocked country. Moses here is writing, and it's worth saying the book of Genesis is written by an African. I know he's Hebrew, but he's an African. He's born in Egypt, North Africa. He grew up in Egypt, and he is writing about his environment. He's writing about Ethiopia. He was also king over the Cushite. And so it is an African that is writing here this morning, and we are reading him because he is one of our ancestors. And he's letting us know that Ethiopia covered all the way from the east to the west. All of Central Africa was at one time Ethiopia. Why, I asked myself, did they change the name of the ocean and call it the South Atlantic Ocean, when the history, the narratives of history, the maps that were drawn then named the Atlantic Ocean, it was called the Ethiopian Ocean? Why did they change it? Why? when divine utterance says Ethiopia stretches all the way from the east, and Central Africa was all. In fact, almost all half of Africa was Ethiopia. And so we want to know why. And so we're looking into this. And so if we understand that, we may understand the difference between the true Negroes and the Neolithic Negroes. The Neolithic Negroes would be, for example, today, people that they mix parentage. In some countries, they call them half caste. That's the difference between them. And so I want to read you something written by Geoffrey Higgins, a British man, and he wrote this in his Anacalypsis way back in 1836. And I'm reading from page 603. And this is what he says. He says, the tribe of Judah was not stopped in its migration westward by the sea, or perhaps when it was driven out from Egypt. Part of it moved to the west along the coast of the Mediterranean till it got round to Guinea. And there is yet with its native curly head, possessing a beautiful country full of fine rivers, among which are found a river Frat and a Jasin. It would be very curious to examine the language of this people. The writer here, writing in 1836, a British man, he said the Jews who left Egypt, when they left, they had curly hair. Curly hair. And what does he call them? The tribe of Judah. The tribe of Judah. May I also share with you Jacques Chirac, what he said, former president of France. He was a French politician who served as president of France from 1995 to 2007. And so, this is what he said. He said, we bled Africa for 4.5 centuries. This is the president of France, former. We looted their raw materials. Then we told lies that Africans are good for nothing. In the name of religion, we destroyed their cultures. And then after being made rich at their expense, we now steal their brains through miseducation, misdirection, and misinformation, as well as propaganda, to prevent them from enacting African retribution against us. That's what the president of France says. We misused them, miseducated them, ravaged them, raped their countries. And now it's coming out. It is coming out that this Gihon people, generation, they are blind. They're born blind because they're not seeing what they need to see and what they need to understand. Not seeing it. Africa, Ethiopia was not landlocked. It was much bigger then. And the people who migrated from Israel, went to Africa and Guinea, Ghana, that area we call West Africa. That's where the tribe of Judah was, Negro land. And Yah said I would give them a new language. I would return the Hebrew to them. And I will let the people know, those who are in the land of their captives. And so today, as predicted, as stated by the word in Psalm 68, let's go there. Psalm 68, let's start at verse 31. It says that princes shall come out of Egypt. Ethiopia soon stretch out her hands unto Yah. Sing unto Yah, ye kingdoms of the earth. O sing praises unto Yah. To him that rideth upon the heavens of heavens, which were of old, lo, he that send out his voice, and that a mighty voice, scribe ye strength unto Yah, his excellency is over Yisrael, and his strength is in the clouds. O Yah, thou art terrible out of thy Kodesh places. The Yah of Israel is he that giveth strength and power unto his people. Bless be Yah. Bless be Yah. And so, let's look at Malachi chapter 1. That's first Malachi, Malachi and Aleph. That's First Kings chapter 1. And we will look at verse 32 reading on. And sovereign David said, call me Zadok the priest, and Nathan the prophet, and Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and they came before the sovereign. The king also said unto them, take with you the servants of your master, and cause Shalomah, or that Solomon my son, to ride upon my own mule, and bring him down to Gihon. Did you hear me? Mm-hmm. David is here saying, because there was an uprising with Adonijah, who had wanted to be king. He wanted to usurp the throne of Israel, and so he had gone out and taken men to support him, and as a consequence of that, it lent credence to the idea that Solomon now should be crowned king. And so David says, when you crown him, call the priest, call the prophet, and take him down to Gihon. Take him down to Gihon. Now, as I read that, I'm intrigued by it. And as a consequence, it compels me to look deeper into Gihon and to see whether or not I can make any tentative link to the Gihon that is found in Genesis chapter 2. I know it's miles away, but I believe King David is a wise man. And I understand in 1 Kings chapter 10 why the Queen of Sheba came to Solomon in his heyday and asked him certain questions. And now here is David sending for the priest and the prophet and saying, when you anoint him, take him down to Gihon. Take him down to Gihon. Anoint him there king of Israel of all the places. Why not take him to the temple? Was it not built yet? Why not take him to the spot where it is to be built? Why? Take him down to Gihon. Now, you've got to understand something, what's happening here, because the point I'm making is that we have read, and we are not even insightfully blind. We're born blind, because, as I indicated earlier, that Sirach is saying, we have miseducated them. We have misled them. We have raped their country. And now we are fearful. We are trying to conceal that which Yah has sent out for them to read and to understand. And it's coming out little by little. The quantum of that which they have hidden is now revealing itself to us. David says, take him down there. Because when we read in the scriptures here, and we read of that water that we see in the scriptures, and they call it the pool of Siloam. That's how they call it, the pool of Siloam. And it is troubled at certain time of the year. Gihon means gushing forth. That's what Gihon means, gushing forth. And so this pool gushes forth 3 times in the summer each day, 3 times in the winter, 2 times in the summer, and 1 time in the autumn. It gushes forth. And that's what the scripture is telling us, that the water is troubled. But not many people have made the connection between the Gihon River in Genesis and the spring, the Gihon spring in Israel. Now, let me explain it this way. Years ago, when I lived in the Caribbean, I lived in a small rural village called Epsom. Epsom is nestled between Enfield and Dover in St. Mary. And it houses a number of streams and rivers. My grandmother had a patch of land we called Tank. And the reason we call it Tank is because there is a stream, a tank that once supplied the village with water, drinking water. And so there is this small reservoir that was built over the stream. And we all go there, and I would tie my goats out in this area. But we just refer to it as Tank. And I believe it was my grandmother who informed me that Tank is really a subterranean channel, meaning running under the ground. Its main source is the dry river that comes from Portland down through Enfield and empties itself out at Epsom Crossroads in the sea. What am I saying? I'm saying that the Gihon spring in Israel, the pool of Siloam, although it's several thousand miles away, it is part of this subterranean channel, tunnel under the earth that comes up there, but it's all from Eden, that encircles all of Ethiopia. And so you cannot disengage, disentangle David from Ethiopia. David said, take my son down to Gihon, down to that river that encircles Ethiopia. Take him there. Take him down there. Let's put it another way. Think of the faucet in your house, in your kitchen. It's in your house. And in some cases, it's just a drip. But that faucet is linked by miles of pipes to a reservoir sometimes miles away. You don't call your faucet or what comes out of it a river, but it's coming from a river, a dam, somewhere. Such is the spring there. In Jerusalem, they say the water is troubled at a certain time of year, meaning it gushes forth at a certain time of year, and it's healing. And so we're dealing with blindness. The Gihon generation has been made blind by miseducation. Not only have the cartographers changed the boundaries of Africa, they have changed the teachings of Africa. And it's coming out in the Word. It's coming out. So I want you to join me in Genesis chapter 34, because I want to address the sayings of Jacques Chirac, but I want to frame it in the Word of Yah, because what Jacques Chirac is saying is that we have raped Africa. That's what he's saying, referring to the Western world. So come with me to Bereshit chapter 34. You know the story very well, that Jacob had spent some time with his uncle Laban, and he's on his way home, well blessed, and his brother Esau is coming to meet him. Are you with me? His brother is coming to meet him, but he's afraid. He's afraid. And he provides some gifts for his brother. And when they met, they hugged. But Jacob had an experience at a place called Bethel, where he met Yah and wrestled with him. And his name was changed. Jacob left home and went to Padam Aram without anything, but when he was coming back, he had a great many things. And he went to live in Shechem. He went to live in a place called Shechem. And so we pick that experience, that story, up in Bereshit chapter 34. And the word says, and Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom he had borne to Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. Dinah, the seventh child of Leah and Jacob. 6 brothers and 1 girl. She's a princess. She has no right going out to meet the daughters of the land. None at all. And Shechem, son of Amor, the Hivite, prince of the land, saw her and took her and lay with her and humbled her. The word says that Dinah was plucked as an unripe fruit from the garden of innocence. That's what the word is trying to tell us. This ought not to have happened in Israel. She was raped, so it seemed, even as Africa was. Raped. Spoiled Africa. This beautiful land, raped by the Shechemites of Europe. Raped. And left now as a disposable napkin. The borders have been removed. The narratives have been changed. New books have been written to account for the lies that have been told. And so the ignorance that we inherit from our foreparents have been the prison that they have locked us in without parole. And so this morning, the Ruach comes to us. It is really our probation officer to give us parole. Dinah is raped as Africa has been raped by the Shechemites of the West. They have captured her, kept Africa in a tight embrace, pretending to be in love with Africa, just like Dinah. We want to marry Africa, so they say. But how long have they been courting Africa? Africa to the west has been as a wife who has been beaten by her husband for years. And suddenly Africa is now deciding that I want to leave my husband, and they won't let her go. They won't let her go. Chirac says, we've mistreated them, abused them. That's what he said, the president of France. And so the words here says that when Jacob found out that Dinah was raped, he kept his peace. And waiting until the boys came home from the field. But Simeon and Levi, they're not easily appeased at all. As some countries in Africa now are not easily appeased. They understand their history, and they're now standing up and they're saying, enough is enough. And so we have these countries like Simeon and Levi saying, no, our sister, our country has been mistreated, and we are not going to deal with that because all of you Westerners, you have been like the uncircumcised. We will not give our country, we will not give our sister to you. Not. And they went out after telling the Shechemite, you need to be circumcised. We need to tell them that too. Your hearts are not right. We're talking about circumcision of the heart now. Had your hearts been right, you would not have done to Africa what you have done. You saw people that Zephaniah talks about in chapter 3, and Zephaniah said, these are the dispersed people of Yah, the dispersed ones, meaning the scattered ones. These are they. And you saw that, you knew that, and you mistreated them. And so Simeon and Levi said, we're going to teach you a lesson, and they did. And when Jacob saw it, Jacob said, you made me stink. Oh yes, they have made Africa stink enough. The world can smell the stench of what they have done to Africa. But Yah says, that Gihon River, that Gihon River that you saw in Genesis 2, that encircles all of Ethiopia. I want to make the point that Ethiopia is not just one country in biblical times. Almost all of Central Africa and beyond was Ethiopia. And I ask myself, that is not that which they call the Middle East also part of Africa? You want to read the book of Jubilee chapter 8 and see when Noah allocated all the land, where it went, all the borders, that they have changed, the cartographers, they have changed them? There's no Middle East. That's a political term, according to the word. And the other thing that we need to understand is that they have taught us through miseducation that all black people are from Ham. No, they're Negro Shemites. Japheths are the Gentiles. Genesis chapter 10, reading from verse 3 to 5. It's there in the Word. And so, even though our parents may have been Howells, where I'm from, they say Patu, short-sighted. We need to be like eagles, soaring in knowledge and understanding of Yah's word. We must. The word Neha is river, means river. And so when you come with me to Job chapter 28, and we read from verse 10 to 12, it says, he cutteth out Neha, rivers, among the rocks, and his eyes seeth every precious thing. He bindeth the floods from overflowing, and the thing that is hid bringeth he forth to light. But where shall wisdom be found, and where is the place of understanding? Job wants to know. And so the word is that Yah, who named Ethiopia, and you see in the word of Yah that Ethiopia is perhaps the oldest country in the world. That's what Yah wants you to know. And when he allocated the land, he also placed the Garden of Eden there. And that lot was given to Shem. So to write us out of history, they would tell us that all of you belong to Ham, and not accepting that some of us belong to Shem. And so we go around thinking that we're all Hamitic people and not Shemitic people. But I want you to know, my brothers and sisters, that we are regal people. And those of us who were our ancestors who were in Israel, Mr. Higgins from England says they had their native curly head. But they had to change all that and change their textbooks so that we who are living downstream in time would not understand what took place upstream in the mountain, when the water was pure, when knowledge was clean. And so the ignorance that they imparted to us has been that prison, that San Quentin. Oh yes, we have been in this solitary confinement of their education prison. And you think that the election of a new president, a new prime minister would give you parole? Oh yes, you thought that because they promised you would get 40 acres and you would get a mule, but they treated you like a mule. Oh yes. But little by little, the rock speaks to the minds of our eyes. And insightfully, like blind Bartimaeus, we hear that Africa is not what they say it is. The word of Yah says that the sun rises into the east and sets into the west. Isn't that what we're told? Then, let me say this. Where the sun rises, it's light. Where the sun sets, it's darkness. So the sun, the darkness is in the west, not in the east. And so we're told in Revelation that when we see the drying up of the Euphrates River, which is one of the four rivers that came from the Garden of Eden, when you see that, you know time is about to close. And we're seeing that. The Euphrates River is drying up. Whereas the knowledge from Gihon is increasing. It's gushing forth. Are you with me? We could have titled this sermon Gushing Forth, because information is gushing forth. That's what Gihon means. And I'm wondering, if this water of knowledge is gushing forth so much, how can you be ignorant still? The man did say, I have no one to carry me in the water. I have no one. Every year somebody comes into the river, into the Gihon, the springs, before me. My advice to you is take up your bed and walk. Are you with me? Take up your bed and walk. Because the water is troubled. The water of knowledge is troubled. And so you better join me in Revelation chapter 22, which we also read earlier. That's Azon chapter 22. Because the word says that, and he showed me a river. He showed me what? A river of water of life, clear as crystal, coming from the throne of Elohim and of the Lamb. In the middle of the streets, and on either side of river, was the tree of life, which bore 12 fruits, each tree yielding its fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. And no longer shall there be any curse, And the throne of Elohim and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him. And they shall see his face, and his name shall be upon their foreheads. And the night shall be no more. Did you hear me? And they shall have no need of the lamp, of the light of the sun, because Yahweh Elohim shall give them light, and they shall reign forever and ever. And he said to me, these words are trustworthy and true. And Yahweh Elohim of the set apart prophets has sent his messenger to show his servant what has to take place with speed. Now, what I'm saying here, that which you saw in Genesis in chapter 2, that was offered to us, and through Adam, we were disinherited. Because Satan came down and tricked us. I wonder where the West gets all its tricks from. Took away the Garden of Eden from us. Yah says it's still available. The Garden of Eden is still available. The river of Gihon is still what? Flushing out. It's still gushing out. The tree of life is still there. Obedience is what gets you access to it. Yes, I know your land has been raped like Dinah. I know that. And as Chirac said, we know we have done wrong to you. We have changed your borders. We have made the Atlantic, South Atlantic Sea, Atlantic, but we know that it was Ethiopian Sea that encircles the whole place, but they didn't want us to know. They didn't want us to know. And so, like Moses, some of us were raised to believe that we're British, that we're Americans, that we're Belgians, we're from France. But now that we are grown, even as Moses thought he was Egyptian, notice what he said, you know. Because to think that he was Egyptian at a time that all the Egyptians were black tells you what color Moses was. He didn't say that he thought he was black. He said he thought he was Egyptian. The issue here is not the color, because he was the same as them. The issue was about belief. He's Hebrew. But we didn't know we were Hebrew either. We didn't know that our foreparents had crossed over the Euphrates. History tells us that the Chaldeans way back then, like Abraham, they were all black. History tells us that. You better go and read Herodias, Josephus. All these great historians, they testify to the fact that we are the original people that came from Egypt and we migrated to Africa. And so now, like Moses, we're realizing who we are. And we're rounding up our brethren. But just like Moses, when we go out to meet our own brethren, what are they saying? They cannot believe that we're not Westerners. They cannot believe that we're Hebrews. But I wonder when the world is made known that these people who have been so demonized, they have been so ostracized, segregated, disenfranchised. These same people that the marks by the slave masters' whips are there as evidence of what we had gone through. Clearly, they had us made bricks without straw. And these pharaohs, even now, will not let us go. Are they not afraid? Yah says in Revelation that he's going to send some more plagues. But we need to do something. It's not just about them. We're told, but if my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves. You know what interests me? That the historians are letting us know now, and it has always been there because it was written years ago, but they've hidden it, concealed it. And that which was concealed is now being revealed. They said, well, these people of bronze complexion, some dark bronze and some light bronze, these are the people that were in Egypt. Because Africa has always fed the world and has always hid the world from danger. Yeshua himself went there. Moses was there. Joseph was there. The whole of Israel were in Egypt. They were there. And the word says that we look like our Creator. That's what it says. And so let's go back to the book of Azon, and well, look, let's go to the book of Acts. The book of Acts. And we will look at, well, you know what? Let's stay in Azon. Let's stay in Azon to solidify the point. That's chapter 1. And let's read from verse 11. Saying, I am Alpha and the Tau. I'm Alpha and the Tav. In the English it says, I am the Alpha and the Omega. That's Greek. The first and the last. And write in a book what you see and send it to the 7 assemblies of Asia. Remember, John is an apostle. He's now banished on the island of Patmos, which is a Roman province. But he has a vision. And the vision involves 7 letters that are sent to the 7 churches, we being number 7, the last generation. We're called Laodicea, meaning lukewarm, a church in judgment. John is told, write down everything you see. And be studious, even pedantic. Take it to the assemblies. And let them know how heaven sees them. You know, we write things about ourselves and we put it in resumes. That counts for nothing here. John, I want you to write down all that you have seen and take it to each of the 7 assemblies. First to Ephesus, and to Smyrna, and to Pergamos, and to Thyatira, and to Sardis, and to Philadelphia, and Laodicea. That's us. John says he heard this. And you know, when you're walking along somewhere or you're somewhere and you hear a voice, the natural thing to do is to turn around. John said, I turned to see the voice which spoke with me. And having turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands. I saw that. And in the midst of the 7 lampstands, one like the son of Adam, dressed in a robe down to the feet, and girded about the chest, and the golden band, and his head of his hair were white as wool. Did you get that? You can argue whether it's talking about color or texture. As snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet was burnished brass. John says, I saw the Messiah, the Creator, and he had feet like burnished brass. What color is burnished brass? That's like us. It's not a boast, it's a fact. So if I was created to look like my Messiah, why are you trying to impose shame on me? Trying to get me to think that I am less than I am when I look like my Creator. And you would hire Michelangelo, who comes with his brush, and he would paint a Messiah that looks nothing like what John saw. Blonde, blue eyes, long hair, European. That's not what the word says. And so this Gihon generation is not only blind, but has been sleeping for a while. But this water of knowledge is gushing forth. Gihon is gushing forth. It's gushing forth. And so the hand of Africa stretches out. Oh yes, the king of Israel say, take my son down there at Gihon, because that water that travels under the earth, like that water in Dry River that comes into Epsom, it's there. But you only see it as a spring, but it comes from that subterranean trench from way under the earth. And put it there, because I'm going to raise that up. And Ezekiel chapter 47, in the last day, Ezekiel said that same water is going to pour from the throne into the land of Israel. It says in Ezekiel 47. But we have been so blind by their teachings. We have nothing on blind Bartimaeus. Nothing at all. At least he cried out. We're quiet. We're afraid to speak. If truth cannot be told in church, then where can it be told? And so we are ever thankful for the word of Yah. Sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth, says Yohanan 17 and verse 17. Sanctify them. And so Yohanan 19:15 says, but they cried out, away from him, crucify him. Pilate say unto them, shall I crucify the king? The chief priests answered, we have no king but Caesar. Are you with me? The people say, we have no king but the prime minister. We have no king but the president. We have no king but the pastor. We have no king but the bishop. And in one voice, they say, give us Barabbas. Every time we reject the word of Yah, we're saying, give us Barabbas. Oh, yes. We are saying, give us Barabbas. You know what intrigues me also? The American Revolution, which we call the War of Independence, it was really an insurrection that was fought. Well, what do I mean? Britain was in control of America, and America decided that it no longer wants Britain to rule, so they had a war, and they fought, and America declares independence on the 4th of July. At least that's when Congress accepted the declaration that was made on the 2nd. So America, you fought for your independence. And you have a people, several million strong, who were brought here in chains and desire their independence so they may worship their Creator, and you want to hold them? Britain, I ask you the same question. And France, Belgium, Brazil. Can't you see we have been indigenous everywhere? Can't you see that? And so, we have been following blind guides. Is that not true? Blind guides. And the word says, by beholding, you become changed. And so that has been our problem. And so, let me close on this, because last week we talked about colonialism. But you must understand that when Yeshua came, Rome was the one in power. So Israel was under colonial rule. Yes. So when the people said, we have no king but Kaiser or Caesar, Herod didn't want to lose his position. Sometimes our prime ministers and presidents, they don't want to lose their position. So they appease those that are in power of them. But they don't fear Yah. We have no king but Caesar. Whose inscription is that on the coin? Oh, that's Caesar. Then give it to Caesar and give yourself to me, because my inscription is on you, because I made you in my image. Why didn't they understand that? Because, you see, they're blind. We are blind too. But I see, way back in 1997, after years of colonial control, Britain said, we're going to hand over Hong Kong. We're going to give Hong Kong back to the people. And everybody is going back to their land. But we are still, where? In the land of our captives. Okay, give Hong Kong back to China. I hear the Argentinians saying, we want the Malvinas. We want it back. Britain say it's the Falklands. You see, that's how they change names. That's how they change name. But we're not waiting for our liberation from any man. And yet we're waiting for our liberation from a man. So let's close on this in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 11. And shall we begin at verse 11? And it shall be in that day that Yahweh set his hand again a second time to recover the remnants of his people who are left from Assur and from Mizraim and from Pathros and from Cush. That's us. And from Elam and from Shinar and from Amath and from the island of the sea. Now, I don't mean to cast any kind of aspersions, but when you read this, the prophet who lived like 700 years before Yeshua came, he's saying there is to be a second Exodus. And as I go through the list of nations here, I really cannot see anything or anyone from Europe. This is the word. And he shall raise a banner for the nations and gather the outcasts of Israel, those people that had curly locks. Are you with me? Bronze skin that looked like their Messiah, who spent many years in Egypt, and when they left, many of them migrated to Africa because they're Shemitic people. We got to understand that. This Gihon generation is gushing forth. And the envy of Ephraim shall turn aside. You didn't get that. Ephraim here is eponymous name because Ephraim was born in Egypt. He's the son of Joseph. And the adversaries of Yehuda be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Yehuda, and Yehuda not troubled Ephraim, but they shall fly down upon the shoulder of the Philistine towards the west. You didn't get that? Let me try again. It says, Ephraim, you know that story very well, because you can read that in Genesis chapter 48. He's the son of what? Joseph, and he was blessed and given the name with his brother Israel. It says that they shall fly down on the shoulders of the Philistines towards the west. Together they plunder the people of the east, their hands stretching forth to Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall be subject to them. And Yahweh shall put under the ban the tongue of the sea of Mizraim, and he shall wave his hand over the river with the might of his spirit, and shall strike it in the seven streams, and shall cause men to tread it in sandals. And there shall be a highway. A what? A highway for the remnant of his people, those left from Assur, as it was for Israel in the days when he came up from the land of Egypt. So we live, and we must try not to live as people aimlessly living without hope. Yes, and I won't send Moses to you. I am coming myself to round up my dispersed people. They have changed your borders. They have ravaged your city. But that river, that Gihon River that gushes forth all the way from Eden, I have raised it up under the earth in the Garden of Eden, and I want to bring my people back again, and that will happen. My word shall not return unto me void. No, it won't. In Yeshua's name we praise. Amen.